right, welcome in everybody. It's another RZB conversation. We got Nick here with us. Talk about some of the results from last year and some other general topics as we go. Welcome, Nick.
Hey Roland, good to see you. Good to see you. What are we talking about today then? And where do you want to start?
I guess we'll start with some real specific to our team stuff, and then branch out.
Cool. Yeah, that sounds good to me. Should we start with the Chiefs then?
Sure.
I uh, I wondered how you felt about going into the game with the Steelers. Did you expect to win that game?
Not at all.
You didn't.
No, definitely not.
No.
Expectations were very low.
You had a similar record
We
to the
did.
Steelers.
Yeah.
Um, would it be fair to say that you felt the talent was on their side?
More than fair. I think the Steelers
Yeah.
were the best team in the conference by a good margin.
Dear. Okay. And you were playing away from home.
We were playing in Pittsburgh. The only reason I can chalk up a win for us is the weather right here. 18-mile-an-hour
Okay.
winds and snow. That felt like the determining factor, frankly. Like he's a strong passing team, obviously, and it seemed like when the weather blew in that day, it became it would give us a chance. And otherwise, I don't think we stood a chance.
There are some details on FOFC with regards to what the weather does, and if I might be wrong, I think rain surprisingly affects the running game more than the passing game. I think snow nobbles both the run and the pass. But I guess
Okay.
I believe so. I believe so. I'm talking off the top of my head. I have it is on there somewhere, or it used to be. But obviously, you're both playing in snow, so it's not only knocking his offense back; it's knocking yours back as well.
Right,
It's
but
just gonna.
his
It's gonna.
the big advantage to his team is his offense. I think he had a better
Yeah.
defense than he usually does last year,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
that's definitely where he had a big advantage on us was his offense versus our offense.
It's gonna knock both the yards per carry and yards per attempt down a touch. So it's gonna turn it into a defensive game, which it did. 13-10. So I think it basically just pushes the averages down playing in the snow, from what I recall. So yeah, it turned it into a defensive game. What would I say? I'd say probably turnovers would become more important because you're not going to be flying up and down the field. So field position and turnovers, and maybe special teams would become slightly more important than in a normal game. Talking off the top of my head.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense. There were no turnovers in this game. Four fumbles, all recovered by the fumblers.
Wow. And how about the special teams? How did that go?
Um, we had a little bit of advantage on punt returns,
Yeah.
but nothing major. I guess the drive start for us was 10 yards better than his.
It's just a tight game, and I mean, I guess in a 3-point game, just sometimes that little advantage is all you need. I mean, if everything's equal, offensively and defensively, if you edge the special teams and penalties would be another big one. The dice rolls on penalties.
Penalties, I mean, there were very few penalties. We had 1 for 5, he had 3 for 30. It was a pretty clean game.
Again, so you had slight edge penalties, slight edge special teams. Perhaps that won you the game. It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously, yeah, that must have been pretty euphoric. Devastating for Rob, and we'll talk a little more about the Steelers. But then you played the Eagles and you lost a really really tight game. Disappointing. I've been there. I know what that feels like. What were your thoughts on that game?
Another game where I didn't expect to win. So ultimately, you don't like to lose, but I wasn't surprised or hugely disappointed. I think the final score made the game look closer than it actually was. I think we scored a touchdown late that made it look like it was a decent game when really Tom had been holding on for the majority of the game.
I mean, looking at the statistics here, it looks a very even game. Neither running attack did an awful lot. You both hit around 100 yards below 4 yards carry. Passing attacks were very similar, around the 240-yard mark. Turnovers, no turnovers.
Oh, we each
Or
lost
maybe,
one.
maybe there was,
There you
maybe,
go.
yeah, you each lost one. Okay, yeah, both one recovery, so even, in other words, yeah. Um, Special teams even. I mean, it looks an incredibly even game.
Third downs jumps out to me. We weren't as efficient because we had longer to go. He was very efficient because he had less to go.
It's interesting. I wonder why that was. That's interesting. Yeah, in such an even game. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. That's a huge difference. That's odd. So penalties. No, he had more penalties than you. I wonder why that was then. That doesn't mathematically make a lot of sense to me. But there you go. It is what it is.
Maybe
Doesn't
he had
lie, does it?
better completion percentage, so he had few, some shorter gains that resulted in shorter third down opportunities.
Yeah, but marginal, isn't it? Marginally better percentage. I mean, yeah, I don't see much in the stats that would produce that big difference in third downs. But obviously, I'm missing something. There's obviously a reason. But yeah, it looks a tight game. But I mean, you say you didn't expect to beat. I can understand you might not think you're going to beat the Steelers because they obviously come into town with ridiculous talent. Why didn't you think you'd beat the Eagles? Why did you think they were better than you?
I mean, they put up 500 points last year, right? That they're one of two teams to do that, them and Rob.
Right. Yeah.
So like they had the best offense in the league by points scored. Uh, they had a they were plus 180. That's a real good point differential. I didn't. They just seemed like a complete team. Like we weren't going to be able to slow them down really.
I think they
He's
are
got the
complete.
quarterback.
Yeah.
He's got the running
Yeah.
game. The defense isn't tops, but it's good enough.
Yeah, yeah. Again, we'll go into more details on the Eagles. Yeah, they're really, really interesting team, and that's why, as I said to you coming in, I'd like to talk about the Eagles in comparison with the Steelers too. I mean, interestingly, the points differential, the Steelers did have the edge. I mean, for me, when I looked at the Eagles, I think efficiency is what comes to mind with me as well. There was nothing about the Eagles that frightened me particularly, but they did everything well. There was nothing that I think, oh God, that's going to kill us. But I think the biggest thing, well, what did frighten me is the cohesion, and I think that's the magic potion with them. I don't think their passing game is fantastic. I think it's good. I think the running game is good. On paper, the defense, reasonable, decent. But they've got this magic potion in the background that makes all of those goods and decents better. So the good becomes excellent, and the decent becomes good, and that cohesion. I mean, to me, watching the Eagles, it makes me feel that cohesion is more important than chemistry because you see an awful lot of teams with fantastic chemistry, and they're not putting together what the Eagles are. And if you look at the Eagles, yes, they've got a good quarterback, but their talent levels are not really that spectacular. With all respect, I didn't feel that the game plans were massively threatening. I felt they were solid. I didn't feel there were mistakes being made. I thought they were solid, but I felt that the cohesion that was running in the background was what made everything tick. Did you have any thoughts on that?
I mean, there's no denying he's got incredible cohesion, which speaks to the roster building. Like it's hard to. That's part of why I think the talent looks less than overwhelming, because you obviously if you got a 12th year guy who's giving you 100 cohesion, he's not going to be a 75, right?
Mm,
He might be a 50, but he's giving you that cohesion.
mm.
Um, there's other teams with good cohesion though. Like if you look at Tennessee, um, their passing cohesion is bad, but offensive line 97, defensive front 100, secondary 97.
I'm just hunting that out a minute.
And they were a 500 team with a negative point differential. Um,
Yes, really good point. Yeah, 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 yeah.
I
Um,
think it gives you want cohesion, of course, um, and I'd rather have it than not. But we were one of the worst cohesion teams. We had 70s across the board.
Interesting. Yeah, we were too. We were pretty bad. Um, yeah, I remember back in the day they used to say that offensive cohesion mattered a little more than defensive cohesion. I don't know if it was true or not. That was the thought behind it.
It didn't stop you
Um,
from being a top offense.
no, we did have a good offense, but then I think we had pretty decent talent. I mean, I was using the talent in a way that I was directing the quarterback and the receivers to be what mattered, if you know what I'm saying. So yeah, our offensive line isn't great and we haven't got a running game, but I obviously channeled it into what we could do. And I think the talent of the quarterback in particular kind of was a big help because obviously a quarterback is massively important, and the big red bars of a quarterback I think can carry a team somewhat. So I mean, did you have any thoughts on? I mean, you're starting to make me soften my position on the Eagles' cohesion. So, what were your thoughts on what made them tick particularly?
Well, I think they spread the ball around, um, which I think it helps their offense just be efficient. Like you're saying, he doesn't have anybody that's absolutely dominant on offense, but
I mean, the receivers actually are not that good, are they? To be fair.
right, his leading receiver, it was a 41 overall.
Yeah,
44, 40, 30. His running back's
yeah,
obviously good, but not actually good out of the backfield with four route running. Um, but he spreads the ball around, and everybody's pretty efficient with it.
yeah. He's got a fairly prototype passing distance. He is pretty much. If you pressed Rex, it wouldn't be a million miles away from what he's running in terms of distances. I mean, I run pretty wacky distances. He's probably giving the game what it would most like to see.
Right, it's the
I,
run game though, right? Like he's
yeah,
averaging 5 yards a touch. Like any offense
yeah,
is going to stay on the field that way, which takes the pressure off the quarterback.
yeah,
He doesn't have to do anything crazy. He can just hit some efficient passes to his guys. Like look, Schultz averaged 10 yards a target. That's unreal for a guy who's a 44.
it's crazy. It's crazy. Yeah, I mean, yeah, and I guess I don't know what I mean. What sort of talent have the Titans got? Has the Titans got much talent, or?
One second. Sorry, you're asking about the Titans?
Yeah, so I'm looking at the Titans. I mean, the Titans' talent is pretty abysmal, to be fair. It's poor. It's poor. So I think for me, you've got a 75 rated quarterback with that blinding cohesion. You've got an offensive line and a quality running back with that excellent cohesion. I think for me, I mean, the Titans they really don't have that talent. So yes, they have the cohesion, which probably makes them like from maybe a 5 or 6 win team into an 8 win team. Whereas the Eagles, it may give them an extra 2 or 3 wins. I think they're a better team than the Titans. Then you add the cohesion on, and they become that elite team. But yeah, it's interesting dissecting them. But more than that, I like the philosophy that he's playing with. The way that he's got these like sub talented receivers, but he's just keeping them, isn't he? I find that for me, I'm not like Rob. I don't go to the other extreme. I probably somewhere in the middle, maybe slightly closer to Rob. But he's accepting. Oh, I'm going to play with these mediocre guys, but I'm just going to keep them forever. It's quite interesting, isn't it? I don't remember seeing that to this extreme before.
Well, I'm honestly not sure where he's getting his cohesion from because if you look at his receivers, this guy's been on the team for 2 years. This guy's been on the team for 1 year. This guy's been on the team for 1 year. This guy's been on the team for 2 years. This guy's been on the team for 5 years. Like this guy's been on the team for 1 year. He doesn't
Tight
actually
end has
have.
got a little. It's the quarterback then, isn't it? It's the
Yes.
quarterback because the quarterback's waiting. on passing cohesion is much, much more than any other player.
Yeah, so it's the quarterback. You can apparently
It's a quarterback.
move the receivers in and out, no problem, as long as you got the veteran quarterback.
Yeah, that is it. I'm just looking at the other
The
teams
tight
with
ends
aging
mess up,
quarterback.
but
Yeah, a little. But yeah, he has got the oldest veteran quarterback in the league, isn't he? Yeah, in terms of the longevity with that particular team, he's winning by quite a way, and that's what's pushing him to the top of the chart, I guess. Simple as that. But yeah. But I mean, even on the other side of the ball, it's the same sort of thing. He's got these, particularly in the linebackers and secondary, they're just not all that, are they?
no, not exactly.
Not really. But again, you're sort of looking at here. He must be making damn sure that he starts the veterans because he has got quite a few new players to this defense, hasn't he? I mean, when you look, there are a lot of guys that joined in the 2060s, 2063, 2064, 2065. There is quite a few guys. So, but then he has got a few 2050 guys, but he must be making damn sure that they start to get because it's all based on who starts the cohesion table.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, interesting. And I'd say he's not under cap pressure because he hasn't got the talent. They're not asking for the big money, and as a result, he hasn't got the cap pressure, and he can keep the team together.
I mean, he's got Harrington on a pretty reasonable deal, considering his talent level, right? He's paying him 38 right now, and it's going down to 29 next year.
Yeah, I think that's a new contract. I think he just recently signed him. That was amusing that he decided to change his mind about retirement. That's huge. That's absolutely huge.
I mean, that's a league altering.
It is
I don't know what you call it.
huge.
Event
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, he could even
incident.
stay another year. I got absolutely hammered. I had a wonderful quarterback, and he was like something like year 13. He was in the 80s. Won I don't know how many bowls, 5 or 6. A fantastic player, and he got suspended. Just pure random luck, people get suspended. Would you believe it? My superstar quarterback gets suspended. And what happens? Because he's suspended, he didn't play, he retired the following year.
Oh yeah, that's brutal.
That's harsh. That was harsh. That's as harsh as it gets. So that's rolling a double one. But yeah. I mean, yeah, it'd be interesting to see what happens. But I do think when Harrington retires, I think it's going to hit the Eagles very hard.
Well,
I'm
certainly
not
their cohesion's going to drop.
I'm not saying they're not going to make the playoffs, but it's going to hit them hard. It really will.
I think
Um,
that would hit anybody hard, right?
oh yeah, absolutely. But it's as I say, I think the quarterback is the central figure when it comes to cohesion. Not to mention he's a fantastic player. So a double whammy is going to be an absolute double whammy when he does go. And I think it'd be a fantastic opportunity for Tom to show what he's made of because obviously now he's proved that he's an elite GM already. But to put the icing on the cake, I really would love to see how he deals with that situation
I
because
think
when he loses that quarterback, it's going to be a test.
I think if he keeps his offensive line together, he's primarily a running team, and he can keep running, and he'll still be successful with the next quarterback he brings in. Because look, his receiving talent, quite frankly, can only get better from where it is.
Yeah, I mean, I think at the moment though, you can't really key on that running game. You can't, you don't. I mean, he's still pushing
Why not?
nearly.
What receiver are you scared of?
I'm not scared of the receivers. I'm scared of the quarterback. I'm scared of that quarterback rating of 100 or 96 or whatever it is, because that's going to win you a lot of games. But 96.6 he was last year. I mean, personally, I would not be comfortable running a cover one when you've got a quarterback that's that efficient.
He's averaging
Um,
7 yards a target. I don't. You wouldn't find that an intimidating number, would you?
I would in this game. Yeah, absolutely. This isn't the NFL. 7 yards of target is in front office football is solid. Is
Oh, it's. I'm
I
not saying
mean,
it's bad, but like
yeah, it bothered
that's
me.
top
It bothered
ten,
me.
top 10 in the league. There's Dallas is averaging 8 yards a target. Pittsburgh's averaging almost 8 yards a target. Like those
No,
numbers.
it bothered me. I mean, I'm more worried about the pass and the run. I look at yards per target in the same way I look at yards per carry. So would I be worried about 6.95 yards per attempt? Well, yeah, absolutely.
I mean that
Um,
that means you're worried about half the league then.
yes, more
Okay.
than half the league. I'm not somebody that runs cover one very often. If you look back at my games, I'm trying to stop the pass and doing a terrible job because my players are shit, but I am still worried about the pass much more than what I'm worried about the run. Because if you've got a team that can run at 5 yards per carry, it's still only 5 yards. But if they're throwing for 7 yards per pass, that's 7 yards. That's 2 more yards. I mean, I'm not worried about how good they are compared to everybody else. I'm just thinking it in just literally in terms of yards because if somebody every time he drops back he's getting 7 yards, that's to me that's painful.
I look at it kind of the opposite direction. I think in order to beat the Eagles, you have to stop the run. And we didn't win the bowl game, but we did a good job of slowing down the run. And I think that's
Yeah.
one of the reasons that that game was close enough that we were in it.
How I play is I like to try to use my personnel to stop the run. So I'll have big red bars that run defense while running a cover two. So I'll try to use my personnel to stop the run while not even leaving the back end open. I don't want to be giving up deep passes, so I don't mind a little bit of success of from the opposition if they're running the ball because, as I say, I've got typically do have very good run defenders, so they're not going to usually overwhelm me. The Eagles might be slightly different with the strength of their running game. I'll look at particular formations. I may run cover one at times with them for sure. But if there was no Harrington, then I would be loading up. So I would have my then at that point I would be having my strong run defenders and cover one on top. But with Harrington there, it just gives me that pause that I wouldn't really want to be stacking the lineup. And I think if Harrington wasn't there, I think it changes the Eagles immensely. I think you can just go in, maybe even sort your depth chart out. Just you can really stack up against the run, can't you? You maybe play the buzzer as well if you wanted to.
Yeah,
It just
I look at it a
it
little
just doesn't give
differently.
me.
I think
Yeah, fair enough.
part of why Harrington is so successful is that like when he played us, he's sitting on 3rd and 5, and
Yeah.
that's asking for trouble. Like you're not going to beat him if you let him get to 3rd and 5.
I mean, in terms of probabilities, he's probably going to convert that maybe 60% of the time. Yeah, I mean, 60% of the time. Yeah, I mean, it's. I don't think there's a right or probably a right or wrong way to do it. I just like, as I say, my philosophy is I like to I like to keep an offense on the field. I don't like to give up long passes. Sooner or later, they're going to get a sack, a turnover, or penalties, or they're just going to have a couple of bad rolls. That's the way I see it.
So you don't want to give up
I'm
something
not.
over the top. No deep passes.
No, no, no. I don't want to be aggressive. And also, I think the way this game works is the more plays you run offensively, the more difficult it makes for an offense to succeed because the familiarity issue
That makes
becomes a
sense.
thing. So if you're pushing, you know, I don't know, however many plays, 80 plays or whatever, you're going to start hitting that wall. So if you are if you score a touchdown and you have to chug 15, 16 plays to get that touchdown, you'd rather do it in one play because that keeps your offense fresh and your play calls fresh. Because if you keep chugging down the field, you get to that late in the third, fourth quarter, the defense is going to start recognising. I'm not saying that's the same in the NFL. I think it's probably the opposite. you're going to wear the defense out if you do that in the real game. But I think in this game, I would rather see a team have to really really work for a touchdown, because I do think you can get that bit of an edge in the fourth quarter with familiarity.
So I assume you design your offenses in a similar fashion.
I design my offense around personnel, really. I would sooner have a team where my old school Seahawks, I would rather be running the ball, high intelligence lineman, quarterback, quality. I've had to cut so many corners with the Falcons. I'm not running what I want to run. I'm running what I think will give us the best chance, if that makes sense.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I could speak briefly about the Falcons. We've kind of. Was there any other points you'd like to, discuss with your Eagles before we discuss the Falcons with your Chiefs? Sorry.
No. Go ahead.
How about your plans? Do you have any particular plans? What direction you'll go in?
Um, we sort of loaded up on a particular draft year where we had, I think, 3 firsts, and the class didn't really come out how we needed it to. So we kind of missed our chance to go the direction we wanted to go, and we're sort of rolling with the punches now. But obviously, we're a run first team,
Yeah,
so we're
you got a great
trying to
offensive
build
line.
the O line.
Yeah, yeah. Is intelligence huge to you?
It's it's important, but we don't have the smartest O line.
Mm. Sometimes you've got to make you got to make the sacrifices, haven't you? Sometimes you can't have what you want, the picture perfect team, the way the way you want it. It's
Yeah, like we've been trying to get a left tackle for several years, and it just has
yeah.
not proven possible.
Guy looks alright to me.
Exactly, he's all right, but I was trying to get like a
Stud.
cornerstone, very good left
Yeah,
tackle. I think that's important to a run game.
yeah,
Uh, but this was like
yeah,
a mid-round pick acquisition. I was trying to spend a top 10 pick on a left tackle.
yeah. Okay, it's interesting. Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, would you have been looking for a running, a left tackle who can run block particularly well, or did you want your
Yes,
standard?
yes.
Oh, you wanted a run blocker.
Well, I mean, I wanted a guy who's a 70 something, which means he could do it all. But
Yeah, okay.
definitely like
Yeah.
70 plus run blocking.
Yeah. I mean, I think the thing is, I would ideally like to build an offense with that monster offensive line. And I did do that. When I started with the Seahawks, my offensive lines were ridiculous. I had some insanely good offensive linemen, and the thing is, when you've you've got your full complement of draft picks, and you can play the game from the start, and you can slowly but surely build up a team. You can build a team properly, so to speak, and get a team where you really want them. But it does take a lot of management. I mean, you've got these five guys on the offensive line, at least. See, you've got six, but you've got to get hold of them. Then you've got to pay them. So it takes a lot of maintenance. You've got all your other skill positions to worry about. So I really, with the Falcons, I didn't have the material. There was no. If I built an offensive line, everything else would have gone to hell. So I had such limited ammo, and I couldn't put up with Simon mocking me all the time. And he's given up
Are
Scheffner
you saying you
now,
got thin skin?
only when it comes to Simon, nobody else. But he gave up because I started winning. If I started losing, he'd come back again. But yeah, I mean, so I had very, very limited ammo. So if I'd have tried to spread the resources I had, which wasn't a lot, because I had the first 2 years, I had nothing. I could have built a line, but then I'd be absolutely kind of dead, really. Dead in the water, I felt. So I thought, right, well, sorry,
If you look at the Chiefs' offense,
yeah,
we've built the line, and would you
yeah.
say we're anything but dead in the water everywhere else?
what's your cohesion, etc.? I mean, this is the
It's
other problem.
bottom of the league. We're 70s across the board, every single category.
70s, that's not bottom of the league.
It must be.
Believe me,
Oh,
and I know about bottom of the
all right.
league.
You take the cake. You take the cake for a 50s on passing, but
Yeah, yeah,
70s is what bottom third, bottom quarter, all the way across.
yeah, yeah. No, that's a valid point. I guess the truth is, I think what I did was impatient and risky, and I wouldn't recommend it to anyone. It's a little bit arrogant what I did, to be honest. And as I say, I think it's probably fueled by lack of patience. I just wanted to come in and be successful, and I just made aggressive moves, and I really, really liked the trades I made. But I felt I built an offense within two or three trades, if you know what I mean,
Sure.
just quickly, because I would have had to wait forever and lose to build, that traditional Seahawks team. Because as I say, I wouldn't have had 2 years of no draft picks, so I would have had no players coming in. Then, can you imagine how long it would take me to build a traditional
Yeah.
offense?
A,
So
a, a rebuild takes time.
it does, and I don't like rebuilds, and I don't like losing. So, as I say, I really wouldn't recommend what I did to anybody else. I think it's not a prototype way to do it, but I guess I saw the opportunity to take Terrell, and I thought it was a no brainer trade. And the wide receivers I grabbed as well. But what I can do now is literally not worry about my offensive line. I don't even or running back. It's the old T-Zac. It's the old T-Zac line of thinking. I don't. My offensive linemen can be very, very cheap. Nobody else would want the guys that I want. So I'm almost playing a different game to everybody else. And as though I always preferred to run the ball, but at the same time, I could see. I always felt what Tizak used to do was, when it comes to winning, was the quickest and easiest way to win. In the fact that you don't even need to worry about the offensive line. I get a bum like Blake, and the centre, he'll turn into ideal centre for me.
I mean, yeah, he's amazing.
He will be.
Yeah.
Um, you know, these sort of guys. Nobody's going to be fighting me for them, and I don't run the ball as much as it looks. I run the ball very, very little. Terrell runs the ball quite a lot because he's a scrambling quarterback, and for me, I couldn't run this offense without a guy like Terrell, and that's why I got the free agent Gamboa. He's like a Terrell light. So my running game I can still get 100 yards a game,
This is a
even
quality
with no
backup you
offensive
got
line.
for a reasonable deal.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, yeah, that's just the philosophy. I could just build an offense on the cheap, which I've done. Not don't recommend it to anybody else, not really, but that's just the line of thinking. I can just bypass a whole load of worries. Don't have to worry about running back. Don't have to worry about offensive line, and you're kind of good to go if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, and as I say, I saw that with T-Zac. I mean, it does seem to me that it just makes life that little bit easier when you can just pick up what other people see as bums and they can start and do a good job for you. It makes life easier. All you got to worry about is filling your skill positions really, offensively. But yeah, obviously I've still got to worry about defense the same as anybody else. But we'll see how it pans out. I'm reasonably happy how it's been going. You know, it's early days
You won the
still, and
division. Hard to argue with that.
yeah, we beat the Eagles last year in the playoffs. We lost to them by 3, I think it was this year. So we're there or thereabouts. We're certainly not a dominating team like I'd like us to be. We'll see where we are in about 3 or 4, 5 seasons. just have to see how it goes. But it's been fun. I say that it really has. I've really enjoyed, playing this. It's 'cause I've never done this before. I've always played, much like yourself and the Eagles. That's my go-to. If I got the time and the draft picks and I'm patient, that's how I like to play. Really, I like to get a high intelligence, dominating offensive line and run the ball. But yeah, this was just throw caution to the wind. Let's get things going quickly and cause some damage. And yeah, when you've got a guy like Terrell playing quarterback, it is a lot of fun watching him play. He's a one-man army, really.
Well, your receiving core is certainly no slouches.
They're okay. Yeah, they do the job. They need to be half decent. They're not as good as I like them to be, but beggars can't be choosers. As I say, I was sort of behind the eight ball when I started. I just had to throw the picks that I did have, and that's what I got back. So yeah, I didn't have a lot of option really. I just threw the picks out there, and that's what I got. But yeah, we'll see, we'll see. But yeah, should we move on to the Steelers then?
Sure.
So I think they massively contrast like the Chiefs and the Eagles, and it's the Steelers. I find them really fascinating that the way that Rob plays. I mean, he drafts incredibly well. Ends up with ludicrous talent. He ends up with insane cap problems every single year because his talent's so good, and then he loses in the playoffs.
His
Do you make of that?
team is wildly talented. I mean, just
Insane.
look at. I mean, his last 30 years is he's missed the playoffs one time or something, two times maybe.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, he makes the moves for premium players, right? Like,
Oh, absolutely. He's one of the best traders in the game. 100%. Yeah.
I mean, his receiving core, he's got four guys that are better than a lot of people's number ones.
It's the sort of thing you think, how can I possibly beat this team? I mean, but he's this quarterback. He hasn't won a bowl, has he?
Doesn't look like it.
That's crazy. That has to get you, doesn't it?
Well, I think we're going to talk about what it takes in the playoffs, and is it talent, is it skill, is it a combination, is it luck?
All of the above, isn't it?
I mean, I think you got to be lucky to win
Yeah, you are.
three,
Yeah,
four,
yeah.
four games in a row in the playoffs. Like, obviously, when you're winning 12 games a season, like Rob is, like, you're doing things right, and it takes a lot of luck. It takes injury luck. It takes penalty luck. It
Yeah,
takes special teams luck, turnover luck. It all has to kind of go
yeah.
your way.
I think you need to be insanely good and a lot better than the other teams to not need luck. If you keep tossing a coin, you are gonna throw tails, aren't you, when you want heads? I mean, if you're that much better than the rest of the teams, then I think you don't need luck. You're going to win. But I don't think any team at the moment is that much better than anybody else. I think a lot of teams are on a similar level. But when you look at the Steelers, you think they should be better than everybody else, don't you? You look at them and you think, well, why aren't you just destroying everyone?
I mean, he was destroying everyone, right? Like his points per game versus opponents, he was plus 14.
Yeah.
That's massive.
His cohesion's not as bad as you think it is because he's completely in this battle, this cap battle every year. You think, well, he's having to discard, trade away, whatever
His
players.
cohesion is actually good.
It's not too bad, is it? It's not too bad at all.
I'm jealous of it.
Decent, slightly above average. But I mean, I guess the undeniable fact is he keeps crashing out in the playoffs. I'm just going to have a quick look at the sort of game plan he's running, just at his statistics. I don't know if he's. I know Rob's not a big game planner. I don't know if he rexes. I don't know what he does, to be honest with you.
I don't think he's rexing.
No, it might not be rexing, but it's a rexy type of game plan. He's got more passes, but it's like the ratio of short to medium to long is a traditional Rex kind of balance. More short, then medium, then long. Whereas if you look at mine, I'm pretty much throwing as many mediums as what I am short. Mine's a bit different, but yeah,
Rob's
obviously,
throwing deep a lot. It looks like to me.
yeah, he is, yeah, yeah, you're right, yeah, a fair bit. Not, he's in the
A
top
hundred
10.
passes is, it's top three for attempts. I know
Oh, I'm
he's
probably.
throwing a lot as a team, but so
Am I looking? I'm looking at the year before by accident.
I can't eyeball the percentages here, but
That's a lot. Yeah, that's a lot. So yeah, it's not a Rex. He because he's won a lot of games. That makes it even more. I mean, you'd expect losing teams to throw deep a lot, not winning teams. So yeah, he is throwing deep. But coming back to what we said before the stream, um, volatility of results, and I think if you're throwing deep a lot, you're going to have very, very high volatility of results because those long passes are either going to be largely incomplete or completed for a large gain. Okay, you're going to have sacks and interceptions and what have you, but the results are either failure or great success. Whereas when
or
you're
like
running the ball,
catastrophic
you're having,
failure, not just incomplete,
yeah,
but interceptions, pick
it could
sixes.
be catastrophic failure or it could be absolute success, as in touchdown. Whereas most of your plays will be probably moderate success. You'll have a lot more moderately successful plays where Rob will be having catastrophic failure or incredible success. So it increases the volatility of results. Now, does that come into play a little bit more in the playoffs? Is that a reason why he's losing games? It's got to be something for a team to be that successful. Is he struggling to make adjustments that other GMs are making? Is he not very good at making adjustments in the playoffs?
Well, I recall something from the forums I think from this playoffs where he posted about how he told Simon he was gonna run the ball more against whoever he came up with against in the first round. I want to say this is all from memory. Against Miami,
Well, that,
maybe he said he told Simon he was gonna run the ball more in that matchup, and
yeah.
then maybe he did, and it worked out. But I mean, also if you're Rob, you should be able to think that if I roll out what's won me 12 games every year, I should have a good chance of winning this next game, no matter who you're playing.
So 2 years before that, he was one and done. Yeah, I mean it's insane, isn't it? It's insane. He's one and done again. Yeah, I mean he did lose in the Super Bowl. No, no, it wasn't. It was the championship game. Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I'm just sort of talking off the top of my head, trying to work out why. Why. I mean, you can sort of sometimes you can look at results and think to yourself, well, that could just be random luck. But when it keeps happening all of the time, and you're talking about a team that's so massively talented, there's got to be a reason, isn't there? Or maybe there's a few reasons.
Well, let's talk about expectations. Like, if you're a playoff team, which Rob is, how often should you be expected to win 3, 4 games in a row and win a bowl?
I did a study on this many years ago. Um, it wasn't. It wasn't. The thing is, once you've reached the playoffs and you've got home field advantage, you're in a pretty good spot, aren't you?
Definitely.
Now, it's not going to be a massively high percentage, even if you're the best team in the league. If you're, I mean, what I was doing, I sort of tried to work it out from week one, and it was something like if you're the best team in the league, you probably got a 15% chance of winning the bowl, that sort of thing, maybe 18%. But that's starting from week one. Now you've already made the playoffs. You probably got home field advantage if you're the best team more often than not. So how often should you win the bowl? He might not be the best team, but he's at least the second best team every year. It's got to be 25%, isn't it, or so?
25%? Are you saying from week one still, or did you jump to the
No, no, no,
playoffs?
no, no. Jump into the playoffs. He's made the playoffs, which he does every single year. Most of the time, he's got number one seed. You would think I'm estimating off the top of my head. You may change my mind, but I'm guessing, all things being equal, he ought to win 25% of the time.
Man, I should get some math probability calculators out somewhere or something. It's like I figure if you're a, let's say, 4 to 5 point favorite, 3 games in a row, I'm gonna guess that those probabilities are lower than 25%. But
Okay, let's put it this way. Let's take it game by game. So he's only got to win 3 games, right? He's got to win the divisional, the championship game, and he's got to win the bowl. So the first game, I'm going to give him a 70% chance of winning. The second game, I'll give him a 60% chance of winning. And the third game, I'll give him a 50% chance of winning. I don't think those three figures are too far off, do you? Bearing in mind, home teams win about 57% of the time, I think.
so if we make it an even 60%, it's the chances of winning 3 games in a row is 21%.
21%, okay. Well, I'm not going to argue with that. 25, 21, that's fine by me. So you could say he ought to be winning 1 in 5. All things being equal, then.
Yeah.
It's not a lot. So yeah, I mean, I came back to say the 15 to 18% from week one, which I still stand by. I think that's probably about right because a team like the Steelers, if you are the best second or second best team in the league, over the long haul of the season, you are going to do well. The dice rolls even out, so you are going to make the playoffs nearly every time, 9 times out of 10. If you're the best team in the league, you may not get the number one seed, may not, may end up as a wild card, but you are going to make the playoffs. So he should win minimum 1 in every 5 then.
Well, I mean, okay, you could say should, yeah, but I think that's also, if I'm understanding this right, we're making him a 4 point favorite in the bowl game, which I don't think is fair because he's lost home
No,
field advantage for that.
off the top of my head, I said 70% first game, 60% second game, 50%. So he's an even in the bowl.
All right, I think those. I mean, I'm telling you right now, if you're a 7 point favorite, that's what it takes for a 70% chance to win. And unless he's
Yeah,
coming up again, like his first matchup, if he gets home field advantage, would be the divisional game, right?
yeah.
And so he's not going to be unless it's a weak playoff year, he's not going to be a 7 point favorite against the divisional round.
But he is going to be a 3 point favourite just by the fact he's playing at home, right?
Yeah.
So he only needs to be a 4 point favourite in real terms.
Yeah, but the game gives you those point spreads, and like, when you look at the
Yeah.
matchups, and being a
I
seven
don't
point
really.
favorite in the playoffs is a little bit on the rare side. That's more of a wild card matchup, maybe.
Gee, I don't. I wouldn't buy into what the game tells you in that sense. Truthfully, would you? I mean, I think the game does spit out a load of garbage at times. I don't think you can really buy into everything the game says. I mean,
We
so
can
if
make
we.
our own point spreads, but ultimately, I have to assume that whether it's coming from the front of the game or coming from the back of the game, those numbers do line up.
I'm a little skeptical on that. I mean, would you agree that home field gives you about a 3 point spread?
I have to think, yeah,
Roughly 3, isn't it?
yeah.
So all I'm really saying is he's 4 points better than who he plays in the divisional game. I think he would be 4 points better personally.
I wish the game kept the point spread information. It doesn't.
But as I say, I wouldn't necessarily believe what the game spat out at that point. I mean, it's always wrong when like you got playoff probabilities.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times I've had like a 2% chance and ended up making it. I mean,
I can tell you, it's probably like twice. When are you a 2% chance?
oh mate, honestly, it happens. It happens. You'd be surprised. Honestly, I swear to you, I've had some horrendous probabilities. Horrendous probabilities. I often start out the gate quite slow. because I think a lot of my edge comes from scouting, and I've had some bad starts to the season and finished really, really strong, like won 9 games in a row, things like that. So I've had some bad probabilities and come out. So I don't really personally believe
Well, I mean, I'll tell you
a
right
lot.
now, losing 2 games in a row and then going on to make the playoffs is really impressive because it's something like 10 or 15% chance to, like, legitimately to make the playoffs after losing the first 2 games.
Is that right? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been in shit situations. Well, I mean, even with the Falcons, I think, if I remember rightly. Yeah, I have. I know I have. I've been in deep shit with the Falcons. Let me have a look. Yeah, here we go. That's 64. Let's have a, how many? I can't remember when I joined now. 64 probably was it? So 64. I was. How many is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I was like 3, 5, and 1 mid-season. Then I had that 5-game win streak in 64. So then you come to 65. Um, I had 2 losses and a tie to start the year. Even after week 5, I was 1, 3, and 1. So you can see again, both seasons that I played, you can see how slow I start.
I've gone and looked it up. If you start 0 and 2, you have a 12% chance to make the playoffs.
Yeah, interesting. But if you look at 64 and 65 on the Falcons, I've had some slow starts both years. Yeah, I mean probabilities they are interesting. They are mathematical though, aren't they? They don't allow for the nuance, do they? The numbers don't know that Nick does better in the second half of the year than the first. The numbers don't know that.
No, that's just all across all situations.
Across all
You might
situations, yeah.
it wouldn't be surprising for you to be above the norm or average in that scenario.
Yeah. But no, so I mean I'm saying, as I say, 50-50 on the first game for Rob, 60% on the second. You don't disagree with that because that's 57% is his home field and he probably like end up a 1 point favourite or 1.5 point favourite off of 60%. But maybe that first game, I still personally believe that he would be a 4 point favourite. Throw the 3 points out because he'd be at home field. So yeah, we're probably over analysing it. But one in 5, you would think he would. I would have thought he should win. And when was the last time he actually did win?
Um, looks like 54.
Yeah, so it's not that long ago. It's long enough.
No, I mean that would
Yeah.
make it like he missed one cycle, right? If you're saying 1 and 5, and he won about 10 years ago, and he missed one in the next 5.
Hmm. I would expect him to have won 2 in the last 10 years. I'll put
Right,
it. I'll
and
put
he
it this
missed
way.
and he won one, so he missed one of his
No, he didn't win.
chances.
He hadn't won one in the last 10 years. That was
Oh, okay, you're going.
1,
It's
2, 3,
54
4,
is
5, 6,
more than 10
7,
years.
8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 12 years ago.
Yeah,
So he could have won 2 and he won 0.
yeah. I mean, he lost a game by 3 to the Cowboys. Like,
Yeah.
that's how close these things are. They've, like, if
Yeah.
he'd won that game, then the math would equal out.
So are you calling this dice rolls then?
I mean, I do think you got to be so lucky to get, like, because like, nobody is. Rob's got an incredible team, but other people have good teams too. Like, nobody's walking in and just dominating in the playoffs, right?
I had some pretty good runs back in the day. If you look at the Seahawks history, we did have some. Well, I can't remember when, again. I can't remember when I left. Probably about 50, 53, something like that. I probably left, but back in the 20s and 30s, we had some pretty damn good runs. I guess this brings us on to the topic of dynasties, doesn't it?
I think it
Quite
does.
nicely. I think it does, yeah. I guess the thing with a dynasty, what is the definition of a dynasty? I mean, it's a very American thing, so I
Is it?
don't really know. Well, I think so. You don't really talk. Yeah, it must be. Well, it's not British, put it that way, because I've never heard of. Never people don't talk about it in this country. It's an American football term, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I mean it applies to basketball here as well. Um,
Yeah, yeah. No, there's no soccer dynasty that I've ever heard of, or
is it
rugby dynasty.
is soccer just too fluid? Are players changing too often for that to be a thing?
No, it's just not a term. It's just not a term that's used. It's not. I don't hear it
What
anyway.
does it get called if some football team is dominating for a good period of time?
It's called a team that's dominating for a good period of time.
That takes too long to say. How do your talking head sports shows talk about that?
Oh, I don't know. What is it called? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know that there's in some cultures there's no word for things, isn't there? Like I know certain cultures you just couldn't explain something because there's no word for it. But what would I
Your
call it?
pundits have got to be calling it something.
Domination. Yeah, domination. There's no
Okay.
dynasty term that I put it out to the forum. Maybe it's just me. I don't really watch football that much, but it's not the term dynasty isn't something that I hear. So that's why I'm asking you, what is a dynasty? What is it technically?
It doesn't make sense to me. Like dynasty, like the word dynastic, that comes from like a line of rulers,
Yeah, I
which
mean,
is your country.
yeah, you might talk about the Ming Dynasty or in political terms, but not in sporting terms.
Yeah, it's odd that we
It,
can agree,
like
but you haven't.
absolutely dynasty when you're talking about history and rulers and that. Yeah, absolutely. Not really in sports. Maybe it's just a dead spot on me, but no,
I,
I
I
don't hear it in British sports. So that's yeah.
for front
Is there a
office,
technical?
a technical term
Sorry.
for it. I think if you
Yeah.
look at it in terms of this game, like deciding whether that means winning a whole load of regular season games over a period of time or winning the bowl multiple times. I think that's the big delineating
So, but
factor.
there's no time span. You can have a 3-year dynasty, a 10-year dynasty, a 15-year dynasty. There's no given time span of what a dynasty is. Then.
No, there's not. It's
Okay.
completely subjective. It's obviously you can't do
Right.
1 year. 2 years would not be a dynasty.
Right.
3 years you might be start talking about it.
Okay.
3 years maybe you could just think it's a great run, but it depends on what your end game definition is. If it's bowls or if it's like domination, right? Like if
Yeah.
you're like Rob's been
Yeah.
dominating. Like
Yeah.
the Steelers, I think it would be fair to say have had a dynasty going.
Oh,
Um,
really? Okay.
I mean, like he's made the playoffs the last 14 years in a row, or 13 years in a
Yeah.
row. I can't
Yeah.
do math on years, but like that's a dynasty to me. Like he's won his division probably like almost all of those years.
Yeah.
He's dominating.
Okay.
And now
So a dynasty is in itself is subjective.
completely.
Yeah. So if a dynasty is subjective, nobody can really make an argument as to who's had the better dynasty because
Well, you could make
everybody's
the arguments
definition.
because it is
You
subjective.
can make the argument, but everybody's definition might be different. So
Yes.
I might start talking about my dynasty over 10 years, and the other guy's thinking more over 3 or 4.
Right. I
So
mean,
we're kind of going to.
the longer your team is dominating, the stronger argument you have.
Oh, really?
Of course. Like, what would be more impressive, a 3 year stint or an 8 year stint?
Well, I guess what I'm thinking about is, are we? You're saying that you don't necessarily have to win a bowl to have a dynasty.
I mean, I don't think that the best team wins the bowl every year.
I agree
So by
completely.
that definition, I don't think that winning the bowl would crown you. Since I don't think that necessarily means you're the best team, I don't think that
Yeah.
that should be the criteria for determining if you have a dynasty or not.
The funny thing is, when I started playing this game, I always wanted to have the best team more than win the bowl. But as the years have gone by and I've become more involved in American sports, I would rather win the bowl now. It's
Well,
really
sure. I
odd,
think
isn't it?
most of us would rather win the bowl than
Yeah.
sit there and say, "Well, at least I had the best team." Like you build the best team you
There is no
can.
at least for me. There's no at least. I'd say, well, I had the best team. So, what I mean? That's the end for me. But that was how it was. I was like, well, I went 15-1. You went 11-5. You won the bowl. I had the best team.
Right, and
And so in my mind, back then, I won, even though you won the bowl. I had the best team. So, but now, as I say, I kind of, I don't know, because I've been around this game for so long. I'm more thinking like you that I would, bowl wins are who wins at the end is the real winner, aren't they?
well, you talked about being 10-6 and winning a bowl. In '59, I was 10-6. I won the bowl, and
Yeah,
I was without a doubt not the best team in the league, not the best team in the conference, but I got lucky in the playoffs. Like,
yeah,
you build the best
yeah.
team you can, but anything happens in the playoffs. You know, good teams can lose in a wild card game, and
But you're the guy
teams you
that
didn't
finished it.
expect could win in the bowl game.
You finish, yeah, yeah. And I think coming back to dice rolls, you have to take the dice rolls when you can because you may have the best team, but that doesn't mean that you're going to win the bowl. So you got to take the dice rolls when you can. So yeah, I think the guy who wins the bowl at the end and walks off with the title is the happy guy and the guy that won, really.
Well, they're the happiest, yeah, but I don't
Yeah.
think they can necessarily claim they are the best team. They may be,
No.
but they might not be. Like, there's years when the best team wins,
Probably,
of course, but there's
probably
years when the
not.
best team does not win.
Yeah. But yeah, that's interesting. So the Steelers have a dynasty. That's interesting. An ongoing dynasty.
Yeah,
Rob would be happy about that. He'd be
right. I
happy
mean,
about that.
do you have any expectation for Rob other than to get 11, 12 at least wins next year and win his division? I don't.
No, I expect he will.
Right, and that's what you expect from a dynasty, right? You expect them to come in,
Yeah.
dominate, win their division.
But you don't
That's what
expect
he's
them
going
to
to do.
go. You don't expect them to crash out every year. You expect them to win the title at least one in every 5 years, right?
I mean, that's the statistical average, but anything can happen in the playoffs, right? Like, and you got to go over
Yeah.
some pretty big sample size numbers for that to bear out. Looking at just 10 years is a small sample size.
Yes, yes, I agree. Yeah, I agree. I'm a big one for sample sizes. It's just a dynasty with an asterisk. I always said that though back in the day. It was like you got to play 40 years 40 seasons or so before you can really. So somebody would say to me, "Well, how good do you think XYZ is?" And I said, "Well, I don't know." And it's the same coming back to the Eagles and Tom. Yeah, I can see that he's very, very good, but I need to, you want to see people in adverse situations because this game has various difficulty levels. You can come into an easy situation, you can come into a hard one or somewhere in the middle. Play 40 seasons, and then you can kind of, over that sort of period, you can see the truth, can't you?
Yeah, I mean, it takes time, and you have to, people have to experience different situations. Like, you talked about how you'd like to build the Seahawks versus how you are currently building the Falcons. Like, now you're
Yeah.
experiencing a different situation. But
I'm experiencing adversity.
yeah,
It's very,
go,
very hard.
going back to Rob always crashing out in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Rob has the third best all-time playoff winning percentage.
Does he?
Yes, it goes the Seahawks, the Eagles, and Rob.
Yeah. So you're putting it primarily down to dice rolls then?
What else can you say? He's the third most winning guy in the playoffs. He's got the second most all-time playoff wins. He's got the second
Mm.
most bowl games, second most
When do we
bowl
find that in the
wins.
game? I'm just having a look at this. What team performances?
Um, yeah, it was Almanac
England.
Yearbook Team Performance.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So he's had 17 bowls and 6 championships. Yeah, so he's really underperforming in the bowls, isn't he? Because that ought to be 50%, didn't it? You'd think.
I mean, I guess like if he had two more wins, then he'd be right around 500. But like we said, we just saw him lose a bowl game by 3 points. Like, these things come down to little plays. Like, he's made the
Yeah.
playoffs more than any other team.
I wonder how often if you threw a coin 17 times, I wonder how often you get 6 or less heads or tails, so to speak. Is that normal variance, or is there an underlying cause? Do you know what I'm saying?
I do know what you're saying.
I'm trying to work out, is he not making the necessary plays, or is he is he a reason why the Steelers are faltering? Is it hit? What percentage is Rob and what percentage is the dice rolls? Pretty fascinating, isn't it? I can't remember what we were. Have the Seahawks been to the bowl since? I think they have, haven't they? They've been to the bowl since I left, haven't they?
Yeah, I mean they won the bowl last year.
That's how good my memory is.
They made it in '57, so they've been back twice. If you left in '53,
They won one and lost one.
yeah, the proverbial coin flip.
So where am I? Where am I? I wish I'd sort this interface out one day. So I won 11 out of 20. So yeah, I'm hitting it. I'm only hitting around 50% then. So I was basically 11 out of 20. Was that 55%?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean that's one coin flip better than.
That's what you'd
50,
kind of
50,
expect.
right? You might lose the next one and
Yeah.
then be back at 50.
And you would expect that though, wouldn't you? Roughly, you would expect roughly 50%.
Right, and you've got the best sample size out there, right? With 21. No one else's sample sizes are indicative. Like my Chiefs are 1-4 in the bowl in the bowl game. Like that doesn't really tell you a whole lot.
I mean, the current Seahawk playoffs as a whole, 0.685.
That's well above expectations.
Yeah, but that's because I mean the Seahawks were good. Is it still above expectations, or would you not be expecting? Comes back to our 70.
Just look at the league wide numbers.
But
685 is well above expectations.
But we have to think the Seahawks are playing at home more often than not. They were playing at home, I bet probably, a lot, weren't they? So that's a big advantage.
Sure.
So this is coming back to Rob's 70%. I still believe that 70% in the division. I'm was hitting 0.685. So I mean, if you throw the bowl out, what was I hitting then? I must have been hitting in the 70s. If you throw the bowls out and just look at the divisional and the throw the bowls out and look at the divisional and the championship, I must have been hitting 70% wins with the help of home field most of the time. You following me?
Yeah. You would have been, 51 and 21?
Yeah, they're not all mine. They're not all mine because obviously I haven't been here for 10 seasons.
Yeah,
but
I mean that 51 out of 72 is 70%.
70. Mm.
Right, but there's some Kevin wins and losses in there. But,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's about 70.
Mm. Don't know that we've settled anything by any means, but
I think that's good. I don't think either of these things were particularly settleable. Just
no. It's just interesting debates. Any other direction you want to go?
I know you had a few notes on the topic of dynasty, but is there another transition you wanted to make?
Well, I was most curious about trying to understand what a dynasty is. So when it was discussed on the forum, I just kind of thought, well, yeah, I didn't know if there was a time frame or anything like that. So it kind of makes more sense to me. That's why people are going to disagree on
what's more important.
What's a better dynasty, this, that, and the other. So people may have different ideas of what a dynasty is. I mean, I thought a dynasty had to win X amount of bowls in X amount of years.
And some people do think that. That's a train of thought in this matter. Like I am pretty staunchly on the side that winning the bowl doesn't equate to being the best team. You may well be the best team. That happens, of course, but it doesn't make you the best team by virtue of just winning the bowl. You can come into the game being the best team and won the bowl, but I think most people would disagree with me on that. I think most people would say, if you won the bowl, then of course you are by definition the best team.
Mm.
That's just not how I look at it.
Anything surprised you so far this off season?
Uh,
Or any notable goings on?
some of the trades at the top of the draft just surprised me a little bit, I'd say. Um,
Mm. Brian was a little bit out of character.
yeah, yeah, I would agree with that. I, I thought it was like perspective is everything, and he was like, I can't believe I gave up this many picks for this draft spot, and like I had just maybe yeah, he got 1-1 for 9 picks, right? And I had in another league just gotten turned down on 14 picks for 1-2.
Turned it
Like,
down.
yeah, like I've traded 21 picks for 1-2 before, and,
Whoa.
and so his perspective is important. Like I know he doesn't like he likes to hold on to his picks, so giving
Yeah,
up
Brian's not a
nine picks for
trader.
him is yeah he's not a big trader, and I'll make a swing
No,
here and
no.
there, so that
I
is a
think
big deal.
I bet there'd be a leaning towards the more successful GMs making big trades aggressively to go up in the draft.
Well, it only naturally follows, right? If you're Rob and you think when I wake up in the morning I'm making the playoffs this year, your first round pick has a far more defined range of outcomes, right? If you think, well, the worst thing that
Yeah,
could happen is if I'm giving up 120, if I'm
yeah,
if or 126, 124, then you're willing to include that in a deal because
yeah.
you know what it is. It has a defined value. Whereas if you're a
Mm.
8-8, 9-7, 7-9 kind of team looking to take a shot and improve your team with a big influx of talent, you might have a little voice in the back of your head thinking, "Gosh, I can add a
Mm.
70 now, but I'm gonna piss myself if I've given this guy 1-3 in the
I mean,
process."
that's why I wouldn't really recommend doing what I did when I joined the Falcons. You know, took, moves that were quite risky, really. I couldn't really be sure of where those picks were going to go, but
No, but you can
yeah,
be sure of a bird in the hand, and you're
that's
you're
right.
you
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
adding a quarterback like Terrell,
yeah. I
and
don't regret it, don't get me wrong, but
it almost
yeah,
doesn't matter what pick you gave up later to some
no,
degree because if you gave up
no.
1-5, okay, the other guy gets 1-5. What are the chances that he's getting a 75 quarterback there?
Mm.
None,
I think
almost.
I think Terrell's probably better than a 75 quarterback though.
With his
Because
ownership.
he's got the bars that matter. His avoid interceptions is nearly maxed.
Right. So I mean,
Um,
yeah. So
yeah,
you'd give up 1-1 and more for that, right?
yeah, right. And he's young.
Yeah.
And also, I don't have to be sweating when after PS2.
Right.
Yeah,
The
that's the
risks
other
are
thing.
completely mitigated for you.
Yeah, I think the couple of things that surprised me so far. I haven't been following the draft because I haven't got any picks, so I don't really know what's been going on. But the Vikings put in what's that quarterback's name, Demister or something like that, on the block. I found that insane, absolutely insane that he did that. And I think that loss in the playoffs must have hurt him so deeply that he can't stand the sight of Demister on his roster, the Vikings, because he's on the block for a first plus. What do you make of that?
Well, I feel like Max has got a robust block every year, and if he can get a first for a quarterback that isn't hasn't done much the last 2 years. He only played 3 games last year. Was he hurt?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, he was hurt. Yeah, I probably paid more attention to the NFC, so I sort of watched this sort of stuff. Yeah, no, I mean he hasn't got. He's not statistically good, um, but
He's had one above average year, I would say, since he's been a Viking.
yeah, yeah. I just thought. I mean, he's got nobody behind him. I just found it really bizarre because I've got a lot of respect for Max as a GM. I think he's very, very good, or maybe not very, very good. I think he's very good. He's not having two. But yeah, I just thought it was, you know, surprising that he put him on the block.
I mean,
But you're right.
look what he's done with his backup last year.
I know.
So
I'm going to
why
call
would you
that
need Demister if this guy's putting up better
dice
numbers?
roll, dice roll sample size, right? Do you not think?
I mean, it's certainly a small sample size for Tucker, but he did better.
Or are we, or are you a believer that there's more than what you see on the rating screen? And there was all used to be that talk. Don't believe the ratings, believe how the player performs. That sort of line of thinking.
I mean, there is something to that to some degree. Quite frankly,
A
I
little
think
bit.
we've talked about cohesion a lot. We've briefly mentioned chemistry and the different things that are determining success. And I think the number one factor is play calling. It's your playbook, and some quarterbacks are going to fit into what you're trying to do better than others, regardless of their overall.
Yeah, but I mean, Demeter can do everything but throw a short pass. But I mean, I don't think that bar means very much anyway. That's just your bad passes in a game, which you're not going to get many of anyway. I don't know. He looks quality to me, and I'm just certainly wouldn't entertain the idea. But then I've never been in a position where I've got a great quarterback that's not performing. Whenever I had a great quarterback, he performed really well, better than a quarterback that's not very good. They always play up to their ability, I guess. I've never had that situation, so yeah. He's 5'11".
Yeah, he's not the
Yeah.
tallest.
Hmm. That was another conspiracy theory over the years, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Did
I
it?
mean,
I mean, okay, I think it matters, but I always thought it didn't matter very much. I didn't think it mattered very much, but
did you ever win with a short quarterback?
that's a good question. Yeah, I did. John Causey, I think. Let me have a look. I think I want to. I don't know how much I won with him. I'll have to look him up. I think he was 5'10". It's really ridiculous if I remember that. So I shouldn't. Is he even on the list? Where would I find him?
He's 5'10".
Is he?
Yeah.
Did I win any bowls with him?
Twice. Well, he won two. I assume they were with you.
Yeah, I
You had
think
him
they
for
were.
two different stints.
Did I?
Yeah.
How you finding him? How you finding him?
I went to individual stats, Seahawks passing, and you had him in 2047.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, he was all right. He wasn't very highly rated. He was. I can't remember what he was. To be
Looks like he was in
honest.
the 50s and 60s, depending on
Was
what
he?
year you had him.
Yeah, I remember him more 50s, but I could obviously be wrong. It's a long time
He
ago.
was more 50s and 60s.
Was he? Yeah, that's what I remembered. Yeah, so yeah, he wasn't flying. So this was back in the day of having a good running game, I imagine. I imagine we were running the ball.
Well, he
I
never
mean,
threw it more than 540 times, so
no. I mean, a 100 rating back in those days, I think that was probably the first stint in particular was probably the days of, when passing was
easier.
easier, yeah. But I had him for like 7 seasons then.
Yeah, you ran the ball because he's not throwing it, and
Yeah.
he threw it well when you asked him to.
I probably had decent receivers.
Probably helped.
Yeah, I did. I had Samuel Lane, he was a legend. Wade Harvey, he was a legend. Rick Shields, he was like a nearly 80, I think, tight end. Yeah, I had some really, really good receivers back then. So yeah, I mean, he was probably game manager, wouldn't he? Realistically,
Yeah, and I don't think height's going to preclude you from being a game manager.
I mean, Hartman, he was a bloody good quarterback. He wasn't that highly rated either, but yeah, I got memories of him. Look at the ratings on him, my God. Can you find Keith Hartman? I've just opened him. What year?
What
Keith
position
Hartman,
was he?
quarterback, 2045. This is when he was old. He was. I just went into rushing and I happened to see the name, so it might be before that. Let me have a look.
He looks like he was in the
Um,
rookies.
Yeah, but look at the stats. 2030s, he was my quarterback.
Yeah, those
So
are. Uh,
2034, look at the passer rating. Absolutely insane. My God. So, yeah, this guy, he felt like he was an amazing player. I'm not sure why,
wait,
but I mean, his statistic, he's 6 foot tall. Yeah, I have memories of this guy being like, he felt, sometimes, I'm going back on what I said here, but yeah, he felt like he, look at those ratings. Yeah, I don't know.
no, I mean, I've had running backs that are 20 something overall get 1,000 yards. Like,
Yeah,
sometimes people do better than you expect, depending on the
yeah.
book.
Mm. So maybe Demister under the bonnet is a little bit dodgy. Do you reckon?
I mean, I think a lot of people would be happy to have a quarterback that looks like this. He'd be an upgrade for a lot of teams.
Mm.
But the fact that
Mm.
he hasn't been moved yet says something.
And the other thing that shocked me was the Bears cutting their quarterback.
Okay, so I saw something on the forums, but I actually haven't seen that yet. So let me see this.
Because he's really good. He's a really good quarterback, and he flat out cut him. Well,
Kinney.
by the book, by the book, Kinney, yeah, by the book, he's a really good quarterback.
Oh, look who's after him.
Who's after him?
Max.
Max. That's insane.
Maybe it's a height thing because Kinney's 6'5". Max needs a tall man back there.
Makes you think, doesn't it? Makes you think. But then look at Kinney's statistics. Look at his ratings his whole career.
Yeah, 80 average. Not great.
No, particularly bad recently.
Yeah, you would.
Percent rush, can't run.
I'm surprised that this was a cut and not a trade, but I don't know what his contract looked like. Well, not even that bad.
No, it's insane. It's insane that nobody wanted this guy, isn't it? Would you not want to give him a fourth round pick? He did try to get rid of him, but nobody wanted him.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't have any cap space, so I haven't been paying attention to things that were available. Uh, but that is surprising.
Well, I mean, the reason I have is that I've been trying to get rid of my backup quarterback, Kurth, who's a very good player. Won games for us, played well.
Go on,
Um,
hype him up.
yeah, and not getting the offers I expected. I've had one crappy offer that I'm not going to take.
Well, if he can't get rid of a 71, you're gonna have a hard time getting rid of a 56.
Yeah, I'll keep him then. God damn it!
He can come
Somebody
back
will
and
see sense.
be your offensive captain.
Somebody will see sense eventually. Somebody will realise it's a good idea. But yeah, yeah.
I don't think people are in the market for 50s at quarterback. They want a 70, or they're gonna be bad and go for the next 70.
There's not that much enough 70s to go around, is there?
I don't know.
Okay, well, it can't be, can there? It's not enough. I
Uh,
mean, when
there's quite a lot right now.
maybe enough for half the league, if that. But the other half of the league needs somebody.
Yeah, there's
I'm not.
half the league's got a 70 at quarterback.
Yeah, but I mean, certain bars are more important than others. I mean, the overall is just the beginning of the evaluation, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, that's where you'd start. Most people.
You look, yeah, it's eye catching, but load of players. You look at them, they might have a decent rating, but would you want them? Nope.
I think you're
Sense
probably
rush,
on the extreme end of that philosophy compared to
probably.
the average person. Where because I remember hearing you
Yeah,
talk about, well, I wouldn't take this guy. He's negative value,
yeah,
due to his contract or due to his whatever bar. And
yeah,
a lot of people would be like, well, he's good. He'll be good. He has a good number. His overall says he's good. He'll end up being good enough.
yeah. Not for me. I mean, the pain that a low sense rush bar brings. My God.
I'm in a league where the bowl winner had 0 cents rush.
Wow. How many times did he get sacked?
What in what context?
Well, how many sacks did the guy take? The quarterback. Did he take a lot of sacks?
Over the season, probably.
Yeah, over the season. Yeah. I mean, was he running the ball a lot? Was he actively game planning to avoid it? Anything can happen. I guess eventually somebody's going to win with a zero sense rush quarterback, but it's a pain in the ass. I mean, okay, you may have an amazing offensive line, amazing pass blockers, but
Yeah.
I mean, I guess you could say that perhaps he was easy to get hold of, and he could put his resources in a different direction. But all things being equal, I would not want one.
I mean, I would rather have sense rush than not.
Oh
But
God!
it's like we
And
said,
then
there's so many ways to win in this game.
yeah, you can win. Yeah, I guess we ought to wind it up. Looks like you got your hands full, literally.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, let's wind it up. Let's wind it up. Yeah, we've had a good hour and a half, so been a pleasure.
All right. Do you have anything else you wanted to bring up?
No, not really. I was just going to start talking about scrambling bars and how they've always been so hard to evaluate, but we can leave that for another day.
We'll
It's,
save
I
it
haven't
for the
got any,
next one then.
I haven't got any answers on that one.